I was 17 years old and had been experiencing daily headaches in addition to 5 major, incapacitating migraines that month. This is why I simply stopped caring about life and had no desire to live, and did not hesitate to take a cocktail of antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications mixed with vodka. I wasn't trying to commit suicide, but I think I was subconsciously open to the idea in the event of a physical shutdown. I was more than willing to go along with it. I was physically exhausted, having had 1 or 2 migraines per month and daily headaches for nearly a year. I basically felt like my life was over at such a young age, and that this type of suffering was unbearable and intolerable, with no hope in sight. My best friend, who shared a house with my mother and me, was by my side the entire time. She saw, and later told me, that I had stopped breathing and that my mother had called an ambulance to take me to the hospital to have my stomach pumped. Here's the meat of my experience. I was lying in my bed, and the pills with vodka were definitely making me drowsy. At first, I thought I was just falling asleep until I became aware of strange sensations in my chest and lungs. My heart seemed to be throbbing abnormally or with a strange series of beats in my chest. I then recall feeling as if my body was communicating to me that this was the end, that this was it, that I was about to die. I remember actually reacting with a sense of relief, and that selfishly, any attachment to my parents, who I loved and still do, and to this world, this life, my friends, myself, were no longer something I wanted to be a part of. I was willing to let go of everything in order to escape the agony of my body. It was as if my complete acceptance of death aided my body in giving up and not resisting the process. I was completely at ease, and in fact, I was overjoyed with this concept. I had a floating sensation and began to see my body on the bed and my friend crying hysterically in a different way. I felt sorry for my body for a split second, as if it were an old friend with whom I sympathized, but I was done with it and wanted to move on without it. When that brief moment passed, I felt as if I were instantly propelled into blackness. I describe it as a churning blackness that moved slowly within itself, similar to being on the inside/center of a slow-moving black tornado or funnel-type atmosphere. My next memory is not like regular memory, but this is the best way I can describe it. At first, I found myself wondering, who am I? Then I think I said to myself, almost casually, oh, I am me. Emotionally, I was indifferent. I had no recollection of my family, my parents, or anyone else. In fact, without thinking about anything, I felt nothing but simple peace and contentment. I lacked a physical body. I couldn't see myself at all. Then, for the next moment, it all happened quickly, but in slow motion. There was a new presence, but it was a mean and angry presence, like something monstrous but invisible to me. It seemed to be getting closer, which made me very afraid. I felt as if it was trying to devour me, and then I felt helpless. I had no idea what it was, but I immediately began asking, emotionally, for Jesus Christ. Within 1/1,000,000th of a second, or so it seemed, I sensed a tiny light growing exponentially larger and faster and heading toward me, or perhaps I was heading toward it, as it drew me away from the creepy presence of the churning blackness. Not only was I surrounded by total light, not the same kind of light as on earth, but a spiritual brightness, but also by the most incredible, most beautiful, wise, loving, and parental presence that enveloped me at first to calm me. I remember it specifically knowing me, and I knew it right away. It was as if this being had known me all my life, better than my family or even myself. I knew I could rely on it, and I felt saved by it. I could tell it cared about me. The presence lacked a face and resembled an entity of feelings, love, and goodness. Massive goodness, out of this world goodness. I immediately felt like a child kneeling at its feet, despite the fact that it had no body or gender. After it had comforted me, I felt all of my feelings and the feelings of others in my life. It felt like a massive ball of energy was passing through me. I recall having a sort of epiphany in which I saw all of my flaws and strengths. Everything fell into place at once. I was having fun with that knowledge, but I didn't get to keep it, beyond the feeling of pleasure at my realizations. I clung to this good presence like a baby would to a mother. I recall feeling like a tiny little blob of spirit grasping onto this incredible being of goodness and sinking into it with relief and joy. There was no discomfort, sadness, or stress. It filled every void in my heart. I felt complete but dependent on this goodness. Then it began communicating with me, like instant thoughts back and forth between us. I began arguing and begging it to let me stay, sweetly and meekly. I refused to leave its presence, insisting that I was finally happy and begging to stay. It was stated, inaudibly, that you are not yet prepared. You must return. It said these messages very gently, tenderly, and lovingly, as if a parent were reassuring a small child. I reluctantly agreed, and part of me thinks it was surprised I was there in the first place, and that it saw me as an undeveloped soul who needed to grow more before staying, for whatever reason. I didn't have a choice. I do remember it communicating to me, in some ways, that it loved and cared for me, but that I was not finished yet. For a fraction of a second, I was gently thrust into the midst of total darkness. I was propelled into my body at the fastest possible speed, and it felt almost like a loud, metallic sound occurred. When I opened my eyes, I saw my mother and best friend crying and terrified. Soon after, an ambulance arrived. I was both relieved to have had that experience and frustrated to be back in my body. My headaches and migraines almost completely disappeared after that day, though I still get them now and then. Since that day, whenever I'm in the presence of another human being, I've felt like a human antenna with a 1,000,000-watt emotional radar. On rare occasions, I believe I have sensed evil beings. One night, I saw an outline of a presence in the darkness, but it vanished as soon as I became distressed at noticing it. It was a good presence, though, and it appeared and vanished quickly right after I had been crying about my life. I believe it was an angel, but it lacked a face and wings. Both evil and good, I believe, attract evil or good energy/spirits, whatever you want to call them, and when people become enraged, it invites more evil. At least, that's what I think I've learned in general. I also believe that goodness is frequently met with vicious energy in an attempt to destroy it or divert it from its intended path. Perhaps it sounds strange, but I truly believe that we are surrounded by spirits that are simply invisible to us during our entire time on earth. That day, I believe I met Jesus. It was a beautiful day that I will always remember and rely on to help me get through difficult times. It serves as a reminder that this life is merely transitory, and for some reason, aids in the formation of various types of souls. That has been my experience. I hope it is useful to someone.